How are you guys? What kind of day has it been for you? Exciting, inspiring. How many of you today have heard someone, at least one person, present with tremendous impact? So let's hear a few things. What are some of the things you've heard someone do today that's really engaged you and grabbed you? Yeah.
I loved when Leigh just spoke, and a lot of times when we present, we tend to put on a persona or kind of go into ourselves. She just let her true self out there, and it really shined, and I love that. I love that, she put it out there and go, well, what do people want to see of me? It's just, she just, there you are, there you have it.
Beautiful. I don't know if everybody could hear that, but Layla's authenticity is how I would sum that up. Her ability to walk out on that stage, that tremendous strength that's palpable, and then also such vulnerability, really making herself real. And as you were just saying, not a persona. So a big part of today is about how you can take your skills wherever you are and leverage them. There's a recent piece of research I read coming out of Stanford, actually, that said the number one predictor of people's success in life is their answer to this question. Would you be willing to stand up and give a speech right now? So if some of you are thinking, no way, this is the right session for you, because you're going to leave with some good tips that you can use to manage your anxiety, feel more confident, and start to discover more of what's your superpower? What's something you can count on, whether it's a prepared presentation or something you're doing impromptu, that can help you relax into what will help you present with more impact. If you're way over on this end of the scale and you're thinking, I'm a rock star, I got this, I'm happy to get up and present, we love that, and we're hoping you'll share some of your tidbits with some of the colleagues in this room, because we would love for this to be a dialogue. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you're thinking, well, Tina and Joy, kind of depends upon the topic. I would say that's how a lot of us are. And so again, our goal is that you might even do this right now. Think about on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 low, 10 high, where would you say you are? If some of the best presenters you've seen are a 10, where are you right now on that scale? Where do you want to be in the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks? And you can be listening for what are some practical nuggets you can take away and put into practice immediately. And also even leave with what's a stretch for yourself. I heard the conversation about even volunteering to get up and introduce us. It's a phenomenal stretch opportunity. So thinking about how can you put yourself forward more? So before I go further, I just have to say something very sacred. This is a very special day for us. So I have known this wonderful woman, Joy, since she was pregnant with her son. He is now 30 years old. We have tracked through life together. She has been a phenomenal mentor for me. And back before I used to present, was very introverted, half the time threw up before I presented. You laughed, but it's true. But thank you. Empathy, with laughter of empathy. Okay, yes. And she saw something in me and said, you can cultivate this. You don't have to just sit back and watch other people do this. And through many, many, many small steps, I can do this kind of thing. If anyone had ever told me I could do it, I would have been like, no way, kill me now. So what I often say is, if I can do this, anybody can do this. This is really a learnable skill. There are also people who have been angels to us. We're here because of a team of people behind us. who have also promoted and supported us. And I just want to actually dedicate this session to our sweet Arlene Labella, who taught me much of this content when I was in my 20s in a consulting firm in the DC area. She has since passed, and we were saying this morning, we can feel her energy with us. So just know it feels like a very sacred and special day. And we want to make this really interactive. So we know some folks have joined in the back. Feel free to come find a seat if you would like. We're also going to, you can point to if you have a seat next to you. Oh, a very friendly crowd here. We also know that presenting is a contact sport. We've been hearing from Layla Ali today, and a big part of presenting, whether you're literally on stage or you're meeting somebody one-on-one, we are always presenting, and we do it through human connection. So we want you to get up, meet as many people as you can. Oh, some of you are already ready to go. Oh, well, hold on. Very enthusiastic. We love the enthusiasm. In this minute, it's not just like whip around and say hi to a million people. Shake hands. Make eye contact. Share a fun fact about yourself so that you get a chance to experience yourself really in your body, connecting with another person. Maybe smile. That's always good. And you may only meet a few people, but it hopefully will be a quality connection. So with that, can you track us for a minute? All right. So I'd say get up, find some people you haven't said hello to. So we're going to invite you to say goodbye to the person you just fell in love with. There was a lot of energy in this room. So how many of you met somebody new? And how many of you made, hopefully, a meaningful connection? I mean, time will tell. The hands went down a little bit. Hard to know. And yet, what did you notice about your own energy as you connected with somebody else? Happy energy? Okay. It was palpable in this room. So those of you, I was talking with a few people before we started who said, oh my gosh, I can barely talk to you one-on-one about what I want out of this session, much less think about myself presenting with impact. If you think of this as you are always connecting with one person at a time, then that can make this so much easier. So our invitation to you through the rest of this session is to do several things. One is notice what we are modeling. You're going to see us do a technique called thinking in threes. We present lots of things in threes because we can track it. You can track it. And if we have time at the end, we will actually have you pair up with somebody and do a little bit of practice. So those of you who feel like I'm terrified that someone's going to ask me a question and I don't have the answer for it, thinking in threes can give you your brain a nice structure to relax into where your brain will end up generating an answer. So with that, I'm turning it to Joy to lead us into the 3 tips within Prepare.
So, give her a hand, right? She's something. So what's so neat is that you've already presented with impact. When you were willing to stand up and go shake someone's hand, which is accepted in this U.S. business culture, right? Shaking of hands, and just the decision that you were going to move forward, that's presenting with impact. So what Tina said about this is a one person at a time deal. And the more I can see each of you as one person that I'm connecting with, it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 of you or if there's 5 of you. That's what makes a presentation. So when you have the kind of courage you had that said, if I want my children to stretch, I need to be willing to stretch. So I volunteered to do this introduction today. That's what we're talking about. The willingness to step into something. And Lila said it. She said, You got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. So that's a lot of what we're talking about today. And you can't eliminate what preparation can do for one's confidence. So I work a lot with men and women in technology. And similar to Layla, I barely know how to use my computer. But nonetheless, I know how to talk to people. So one of the things that I'm often aware of is how important it is to understand how smart you are. I mean, you people are really, really smart, right? And how I end up working with people, coaching them in being able to present themselves when they're as smart as they are, yet have nervousness around going to a meeting or being able to speak to somebody above them or being able to sell a great idea that they have. I am stunned by that because I don't have some of those smarts that you have. Yet I'm up here acting really confident and chirping away, right? The preparation that you bring to anything in life is going to empower you with some confidence. And then there's that leap we have to take. So if you think of preparing yourself, the first thing we need to do is, who am I talking to? Who is this person to me? What do I know about them? Who do I know that knows something about them? Who is it that I can call on that gives me a sense of what is important to them? Because if I can understand what's important to them, I'm going to be able to speak to something that will create value for them. And that's the service of presenting with impact, that we take time to figure out who we're talking to understand what they need so you can be of service to support what they need. So we do a lot in the world of understanding personalities and understanding differences in terms of thinking styles. And we have a little symbol up here for this thing called the Herman brain dominance. It's about the whole brain. And really understanding that there are some people that love the big picture. And no matter how much you love details, they don't want to hear them, right? They just want the bottom line. Or there are people that won't trust what you say unless you give them the evidence and the details that brought you to those decisions. There are people that if you don't have a little moment to say hello and connect in a human way, they will feel distant from you when they don't need to, had you just made that extra effort to move toward them with some energy, just like you moved toward each other when Tina asked you to stand up and to introduce yourself. And then there are those folks that they want you to present something in an orderly, sequential, make it logical, let it build fashion. And if you hop all over the place, you are going to lose them. So my entire career for the last 30 years, I've been trying to learn how to speak to those people. So I'm not hopping all over the place. But here's the other thing about preparing. You know who you are. You know what you're working with. You get a sense of who they are. And your job and my job, our job, is to build the bridge to make the connection. So that's why we take time beforehand to analyze an audience. The other thing, I loved what Layla said this morning. She said, know what your intention is and what your purpose is. So what's your intention? If you are going to present to one person, but that person has a tendency to intimidate you, and you have an idea that you are tired of talking to yourself about, and you want to have an impact or an influence on him or her, then talk it to your good friends. Practice it. Work with it before you go to that person and ask yourself, what kind of thinking preference is he or she? And let me speak directly to it so there's less room for me to get bumped out before I'm even able to say what I've come here to say. Does that make sense? So a lot of this is about the preparation. The second thing is we love examples. Humans love examples. We want a story. We want a good story about something. So when I think of back when I started this work, the very first thing I ever did was assertiveness training for women. There were only 8 of them. I was trying to get a master's degree and I needed to write a thesis. So I thought to myself, what would I be interested in life? And it was learning how to be more assertive. I wasn't all that assertive at that point. So developed this training program. I offered it to the Career Center. And now, granted, I didn't throw up before I spoke, but I could never stand. And people couldn't see me because I'm so short, but I would sit anyway because it was too intimidating to stand. So here's the interesting thing about the story. For me, I love to hear people's stories. So for you, as you are getting engaged with somebody, when you're going to present something to somebody, get there a little early and hear some stories. Talk to people that you're going to be presenting to. Go to meetings early so you're the first one there, and pretend it's your living room and you're welcoming people in to your living room. Go and own the space. Figure out what is it that would be most important to these people, because I can identify examples. I can create evidence. I can bring statistics. I can bring a story that makes something come to life for them. And the third thing, all of this is getting these things prepared beforehand so you're ready for that day. You should never go to a meeting where you have an idea that you really want to sell, that you want to present with impact without getting allies on your side first. Think of it as life is about politics. It's about allies. It's about support. We heard that this morning. Who are the allies that are in support of what you come up with? Who do you need to connect with before you make a presentation? Who do Tina and I need to call to find out more about who you are and what's important to you? So the concept of I can identify allies and I can generate support. All of that happens beforehand and behind the scenes. So by the time you show up somewhere, you have already been there in your mind. You're already there in your heart. You might already have connected with somebody. You've built a little alliance around an idea that you think is going to be hard to float. You might have asked the person that you get along with least, or that you think is going to be your greatest adversary. So what do you think about this thing that I'd like to talk about at Friday's staff meeting? And you really figure out beforehand, what am I up against? Because that is what I'm going to prepare for. So any questions about anything in terms of these three? Yes.
You talk a lot about preparing before arriving somewhere. So it's, I mean, it was great you come ahead of time and have a chance to talk to people. But do you have any recommendations for example, how to like determine someone's thinking style when you don't really have much time to interact with them, and how to like develop allies when you're coming into a room where you don't know anybody?
So here's what I would say about the whole idea of the thinking style.
Could everybody hear the question?
Oh, great. So what do you do when you don't know people's thinking style beforehand? And how might you be able to figure that out in the moment when you're just coming in cold? So one of the first things that I think is important to do in any presentation, if it's at a staff meeting, if it's something like this, is to ask somebody that is your point of contact, what do you think these people want to know? What is most important to them? Or in a smaller session, we would ask the people, what's most important for you to hear from us today? How much detail would you like me to share with you? We've got, we got 50 slides here, or we got 40 pages of research that we've done to bring you this moment in time, and we've got 10 minutes to make this presentation. What do you want to make sure we hit? So you can take time. And this might be going against conventional wisdom. Start out strong, start out with expertise, hit them hard in the beginning. If you can ask a powerful question that gives you some data about how they want that information to come to them, that will serve you much better than coming across stronger, but maybe not finishing strong. So I would say that about that. Would you add anything, Tina, to answer her question?
No, I love it. And I think that fits with the allies piece as well.
Yeah. The other thing, in terms of an allies, you can tell by people's face if they're with you or not, right? I mean, how much can you tell when you look around the room and you see people's frowns and scowls? You could even say, gosh, there's a puzzled look on your face. I'm wondering if you have a question. Or I noticed that you were talking at the break and I overheard a little bit. I wonder if you could Give me a little bit more information about what doesn't make sense to you about this. Go after what you notice and what you see rather than have it intimidate you into shrinking into the background. So with that, what I'd like to do is to pass it back to Tina, and she'll talk to us about, once you get this out of the way, we'll go to the second of our 3 to practice. And I'm going to turn myself off so there's not 2 of us chat.
We're trying to avoid the mic mischief with it. So let's say you have done, as Joy was just saying, you've done prep in advance, and I loved your question. You've also done your best to tap dance while you're there with a group, kind of doing real-time reconfiguring. So sometimes you have a chance to do practice in advance. Sometimes you're caught off guard. There's an impromptu presentation you need to do. However, here's what we have learned from 20 plus years of coaching people, from interns to people in the C-suite. If you practice some of these skills when you have time, it will totally support you in the times you feeling like you're getting caught off guard or you're blindsided. So the biggest mistake I would say our clients make is that when they're asked to do a presentation, they focus on, you can probably guess what it is, the slides. And they spend 90% of that prep and practice time obsessing about the slides, the formatting, the words. Joy's going to talk to you a little bit about the other components that are really important when you present. And as we're thinking about the practice piece, here's what we would encourage you to think about. You are the presentation, not your slides, not your materials. When Joy was just talking about having 50 slides or 40 pages, that's great. That will help you be clearer, well organized, ready to rock and roll. We're certainly saying you need to do that piece. And yet, if you neglect the somatic piece of this, that you are a human being in a body that needs to connect with people, that needs to be able to be the vehicle for this, then it really will diminish the impact of your message. So I'm curious, how many of you actually practiced a presentation out loud before? Okay, fabulous. So well over half of you. What does that give you if you practice it out loud? Wait, sorry, what's your voice?
I will record it too, and when you listen to it back, you just really hate the sound of your own.
Oh, that you hate the sound. Okay, yes. I think that's a universal reaction. And yet, once you can move past the hating your voice, what information do you get from videotaping it and listening?
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Oh, you hear so's, you hear a lot of the annoyances that people might focus on, and then you also hear what you are saying or not saying.
Beautiful. So again, I'm not sure if everybody could hear that, but when you hear the filler words, so's, likes, all of that, and you can also hear the clarity or lack thereof in the actual message you're giving. And then,
It was the same point.
okay, nice tag teaming there. Was there another
I
hint?
was just gonna say, like, parts that might drag on that you can, like, critique a bit to
Tighten up. So there's a big piece about timing that practicing aloud gives us. Many of us, when we practice in our heads, we either zip through it and we think, oh, I can nail those 19 slides in 3 minutes. And then we get to do it. No, we can't. Our mouths can't even move that fast. Or we do the opposite. So there's something about practicing aloud that allows you to, clarify your message, check out the timing, think through the places where people might have a reaction, or how are you going to keep people engaged? If you're falling asleep, listening to yourself present something, it's a good signal. It is not compelling. So how many of you are familiar with Tim Ferriss? know him, follow him, his blog, and so forth. I don't know if any of you had a chance to hear him when he was up in the San Francisco area late last year. And he told a fabulous story about how he had gotten at the very last minute an opportunity to present on a huge stage at South by Southwest. He was just moving into the arena where he was getting used to public speaking, and he said he was terrified to do it. He said he got a ticket, flew to the city. He literally got like 24 hours notice that he was going to be a fill-in speaker. He said on the way, he was thinking through what he was going to present, and he said he got to his friend's house. All the hotels were booked, bunked with his friend. His friend went off to work, and he said he stood there with his friend's 3 chihuahuas in front of him, and he thought, this is my audience. All right, I got to practice. And he said what he realized was if he could keep the chihuahuas engaged, it was really good. And the places where the chihuahuas left the room, got to tweak that part. So whether it's chihuahuas, your cat, we have friends who practice in front of their like pillows on their couch, whatever it is, finding a way to come up with a practice that, again, supports you in being your best self and getting accustomed to talking louder than you often would and getting past that, ooh, I hate how I sound. It was interesting. We had a chance to just go to the fireside chat with Layla, and somebody asked her a question about what she has learned from failure. And she said, it's interesting. I'm actually, on paper, I'm undefeated. And, in the biggest matches, is that match the right word? Whatever. I did great, undefeated. However, she said, I had a lot of situations sparring in the gym where I lost that fight. Every one of those, she said, was videotaped so that she could go back and watch it and dissect it. And she said, looking back, they weren't failures because she learned something impactful from each of those. The other piece she shared, we're going to just weave Layla through every slide, it feels like, is this idea of establishing a mantra or a ritual. So in a moment, I'll tell you mine. Layla's was, she watches, or she said she used to watch the movie The Gladiator every single time before she was going to go in for a big fight. And she said it put everything in perspective. Here are these people doing this crazy fighting. And she's like, I just have to fight with one chick. I can do this. So she said that ritual put her in the right mindset. Mine is more of a mantra. Again, I learned this decades ago, and it's this phrase, I know what I know. I say that every single time before I'm going to present. I don't say it to the audience. I say it to myself in the car or in the ladies' room, just mentally in my head. And we're going to invite you right now to think about what is a mantra for you or a ritual you might start to do. I'll give you a few other suggestions. I have a client who hers is, I've got this. We were talking last night. Joyce said for years she would say, here, you share it.
I live in California and I'd work in Washington, D.C. And one of the things was, I'm glad I'm here. But I wasn't glad I was there. I was exhausted. I was talking to people in the middle of my night. So I'd be walking there and I go, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm not glad I'm here. I'm tired. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. By the time I got there, I was glad I was there. It was a journey.
Yeah. So it might be a mantra. It might be more of something you do in a ritualistic way. We have had clients who said, I wear this specific piece of jewelry, this watch, my lucky socks. Again, something that then you can start to equate with whenever I do this, it helps me kind of put my superhero confident cape on and again, drop into my strengths. So talk to someone next to you about either something you've done before that's worked that maybe you want to reinstall, or something maybe you've heard or you want to make up and try out for yourself. Right, so 30 seconds. We would love to hear a few of those. Did anybody hear something from the person you were just chatting with that, well, maybe don't volunteer them if you just met them. But so did anybody maybe point to someone if you were just with somebody who shared something you were like, I love that. I would love to nominate you. Just love to hear one or two out there. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
I was nominated.
Okay.
When I want to feel empowered before I'm going to public speaking event, I'll actually pay a lot of attention to how I dress. Makes me feel empowered. And other people picked up on it. So much so that they'd be like, oh, she's got her battle armor on today. And like they could tell when I was ready to go speak.
Beautiful. So I love it. And the layering there of you do it so much that people see it in you also means you get the benefit then of the other people's perceptions that you are even more confident. So that's really cool. Look at there was one more in the back. Or not. Okay, yes.
So my friend here nominated me. I didn't nominate myself. So I actually have two things. One that I shared with my associate here is I never get tripped up on if I don't know something. If I don't know it, I'll find it out. And I'll admit I don't know the answer to that, and I'll find it out. The other thing is, I think that's really important, is to approach an interaction or presentation from the perspective that the people who are your audience want you to do well. They're not trying to sabotage you. So if you go into that, and I work for a company who really wants us to do well, so they're not looking for poke holes in arguments. They're looking to find a reason to do something, not to do it. So if you take that perspective, I take that perspective that they want me to do well, they're here to support me. If I don't know something, I'll figure it out. I'll find out.
I love it. So could everybody hear both of those? So I was just thinking about, we were asked by a pharma company a few years ago. They said, can you come in and work with our sales reps? We want them to get much stronger at presenting with impact and help them find 50 ways to say, I don't know, when they don't know. And one of the things we told them was, there are times where it is fine to say, I don't know. It's a fabulous question, and I'm going to find out for you. So relaxing into that, and that other piece of people relax when they see the person up here smiling, being confident. And what did you notice today, Ayla do, if any of you picked up on this, when she lost her train of thought? Totally is humor. I actually wrote down her phrase. It was something about, well, as I was saying, well, I really wasn't saying it. And here's what I'm going to say. And she just took us, however many people were in that room, all went with her. Now, she had built a lot of credibility with that audience and a lot of warmth. So we were willing to go there, but great reminder of people have our back and want us to do well. And then that leads us nicely to this last piece. So much of what we've been talking about, if you practice, if you prep and practice, you have your mantra or your ritual, you have beliefs that will support you. All of those things help manage our anxiety. One of the things many of us don't realize is we think of anxiety as just being a mental piece, because that's often how we think of it. Oh, I'm stressed about presenting to the C-suite, or oh, this is an intimidating situation. And we can follow our mental threads. The actual access point and where anxiety is actually held is in the body. And it is a physiological response that can be managed by, you guys know what it is? Breathe. Yes, exactly. Breathing. Breathe in oxygen. You've probably heard that when we're stressed, we can lose 10 IQ points. So breathing will give you access back to that. And there are a number of different techniques some people use. There are some crazy ones we have done with clients. My thought for now is to actually just keep it moving. However, if you would like more tips on this, we are happy to stay after. Talk with anybody one-on-one. Some of this is finding what works for you. The clue I would give you on breathing, though, is for some of you, you need a cooling breath that calms you down, gets your feet on the floor, gets your breath slowing you down. And for others, you need what's called a hot breath. You need something that gets your energy up so that you can be dynamic and get your hands warm and your shoulders loosened up. So I will sprinkle that in and then keep us rolling here. All right.
Great job. So as I listen, it's so fun to watch somebody you respect and love work, isn't it? I mean, I know many of you have that in your working environments. So one of the things that I want to say about, game day, I mean, we're going to be there. We're doing the presentation. By the time we've gotten to this point, we have moved through a lot. And I was reminded standing here, one of the most moving people or experiences I ever had in coaching someone for a presentation was a woman that had moved here when she was 17 from mainland China. And she was in the middle of her presentation and she was doing a great job. And then she stopped and she got very upset. And I said, so what's going on? She said, if my mother were here, she would be ashamed of me. Well, that took my breath away. And I said, what are you saying? She said, this is not who I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be somebody that is in the front, speaking boldly, taking space, being the person that is, it's just too many eyes on me. I was taught to be seen and not heard. I was taught to be deferential. I was taught to be in the background. So what I want us to just take a moment to get a sense of is preparing ourselves, is often preparing ourselves to do something that flies in the face of our history, our background, our conditioning. It might fly in the face of somebody because we were too bold and couldn't sit still in grade school. They told us to sit still and be quiet and calm down. So there's a lot of messages that we bring with us. So preparing ourselves, practicing, doing those things that Tina just talked about, some of it as we step into doing things that bring us further forward in our lives, in our careers, with our colleagues, it's going to trigger things inside of us where we have early messages that we need to move through. So I just want us to take a pause and even respect the fact that each of us has had our own journey to get to this moment in time. And so our goal with you is to really have you think about what is the strength that you have accumulated along that journey? How has that brought you to this moment in time? So whatever your scale is of here's 10 and I'm a 7, and we want to support you getting from a 7 to a 10, that's all doable by starting to just unearth and listen to, wow, who am I and who do I want to be and what do I need to do to get there? So by the time we get to this moment in time, we've often done a lot of work, right? So we're at the presentation itself. We are in the environment. I can only say to you that for any time you are the one that's on deck and you've got to be presenting on behalf of your team or presenting in any circumstance like this, get there early to feel the space. Get there and figure out where you're going to sit. And we work in many organizations where let's say we never stand when we present. Well, maybe you should challenge that norm sometimes, or maybe you shouldn't, but by darn, you should figure out where at that table you're going to sit so you can see everyone and everyone can see you. I mean, don't put yourself in the middle of a side where you got to go like this to try to get to either end. Get to a corner if you can't claim the front So all of that makes a difference in terms of just the physical environment. Then there's the idea about how do I communicate trust and believability? It has a lot to do with congruence. So the idea of what is it that makes up trust and believability? Well, numerous things. First of all, integrity and all of those things. Having accurate data, that helps a lot. I mean, of course. What we're talking about is trust and believability in communication. So there was this fellow, Albert Moravian, many years ago who did these studies at UCLA. And he said, when you are speaking and in communication with someone, and there is some dissonance in the message, that what will often happen is that your words will only be trusted to about 7% of the possible 100 if we had points to offer for trust and believability. So the actual verbal things that you are saying, the vocal would be 38%. Your tone, your inflection, your pace, your projection, if there's sarcasm moved into what you're saying, if there is upspeak. He said that tone, that vocal, would be 38%. And the appearance and the visual is 55%. So if I say to you, "Oh, I'm really upset about what just happened," and you think to yourself, well, she doesn't look so upset. She's got that kind of fake little smile on her face. What's that about? Right? Or if I say, well, of course I have time to talk to you. Right? So we cannot, let me say it this way. Your body doesn't fib. Sometimes our words do, but our body doesn't. So if you are congruent and that the words you're saying matches your tone of voice and your vocal presentation and your body language and all of that other stuff, then you are golden and the trust and believability is there. If there's any dissonance, then that's where people end up wondering, is this accurate what she's saying? She doesn't look very confident. So can I trust what she's telling me? So in light of that, we want you to be aware of congruence is probably the thing that is the most important variable when you are presenting information. The second is, what is impactful body language? In this business culture, number one is what? What do you suspect it is?
Posture.
Posture is very important. In fact, that whole business about executive presence that we're all obsessed with these days, that has a lot to do with posture because executive presence gets attributed to you and I before we ever open our mouth. So if you have a presence and if you have a posture, if you look like you have enough energy to hold your own body upright, that means something to somebody that's perceiving you. The other thing that's really important in our business culture is eye contact. Maybe not as much in some other cultures, but in this particular one, if you aren't able to look at someone, if you're not able to keep their eye contact, we even have a phrase called shifty-eyed, which means, that person's shifty-eyed. I wonder if I can trust what they're saying. And you don't have to stare at them, but 3 to 5 seconds makes a difference. And when you're at a meeting or when you're in an environment like this, for me, I need to look at those of you that are back there because it includes those of you that are up here. If I just talk to you, first of all, it would impact my posture. And secondly, it wouldn't reach the people that are in the back of the room. So that's why you have to be sitting in a seat at a meeting when you are not able to stand, so everybody can see you and you can see everybody. You can tell a lot by what's happening by looking at their face, let alone your own facial expression and what you're communicating. So it's eye contact, posture, facial expression needs to be congruent. When Tina talked about we need to breathe and move, and for those of you that are more still in your nature, or when you present, you say, I have no idea what to do with my hands, right? That's not my issue, right? 100% Italian up here. But for some people, it's hard to know what to do with their hands. You need the hot breath. You need to get yourself circulating because your hands are a way to include people. It's a way to communicate warmth. It's an extension of who you are. It's a way if I look this way to bring this side of the room into the conversation. So think of your gestures as being here. We don't want your hands flipping in front of your face, but we do want them moving because they give a presentation energy. And you might do much less so if you're actually sitting in a meeting. But I'll tell you this. I work with a lot of people that say, I work with a bunch of extroverts and I don't get to say anything because it's like having to fight to be heard. There are ways at a meeting that you can cue yourself up to go next, and it's by moving yourself forward. You'll either put your hand in, you'll maybe put your glass down in the center of the table, you'll put a pen down. You do something that on a nonverbal level communicates the subliminal message, I am next. You move in to the sphere of communication. So gestures in that way can be very powerful. They can also punctuate what you're saying. What did I leave out? Posture, gesture, appearance. Shannon talked about that. Your appearance often can let people know if they need to pay attention to you. Your appearance is a way that in analyzing your audience, you can create a better connection with them. You don't want to go dressed to the nines to a place that's skateboarding through the halls, right? Yet you also want to, if you're speaking to people that are accustomed to a certain level of professional dress, not to underdress if you're the one that's presenting. And the last thing that really is important here is pace, pitch, and projection. So do any of you know people that talk so fast you hear their voice as an echo almost? I have this daughter. I mean, she's been in New York for 15 years. She is way fast. And I'll often hear what she said almost after she said it. I think the words are in my brain and then I can decipher them a little bit more slowly. If you are in a group of people where members of your group speak 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, I am not saying to go so slow that it's insulting, but I am saying take a breath where there's a period. I mean, give people an opportunity to download what you're saying. Actually pause if you've said something important. In that pause, people get to take it on, maybe figure it out, ask a question, even in their own mind. They're in dialogue with you, whether they're speaking to you or not. So you want to be in a circumstance where you're inviting their participation. Your pace, I think, equals kindness, that you really want to be in a dialogue. So don't speed through. Pitch. Many cultures have you speak at the end of the sentence and it goes up, and it doesn't mean they're being tentative. It might mean they're from Australia, right? In our culture, if you go up at the end of the sentence, what does it sound like? Sounds like I'm asking you a question. So if you're asking a question, you go up at the end of the sentence. If you're not, don't. Because people will get confused, and the congruence will be confusing that there's upspeak when you're making a statement. And these are the things your best friends sometimes won't tell you. So ask for feedback. What about my presentation sounds confident to you? How is my pitch? Do I go up at the end of the sentence? Because it can make a difference in how confident you come across. And then the third thing is projection. I have a colleague, highly introverted. She said, I hate hearing my voice reverberate in my own brain. And I will say to her, you can hear you in your own brain, but I can't hear you across the room. So you have to project not just your voice, but your own energy. How do you move toward? There are many times in life when we want to move away, or we want to just stay still, or we want to receive from. If you're the one making a statement that you want other people to hear, if you want to create an impact, if you're making a presentation, the energy is that of moving toward. Not to overwhelm, but to connect. So the projection moves in your direction so I can reach you to make it easier for you to reach me. Make sense? So any questions about what might be showing up when you're in the actual presenting? Yes.
So a lot of my team works remotely, and so we are on conference calls a lot. We're not sitting in the same room. We're not seeing each other.
Beautiful.
You can't use eye contact and posture and body language. What
Thank you.
recommendations do you have for that kind of scenario?
I have some really great recommendations, and if I had remembered that I had practiced those, I would have said them already. If you have ever been on the other end of a conference call where the only thing you could do was multitask, you know that the person that's speaking is not using their greatest asset virtually, and that is their voice. All those things I just talked about, pace, pitch, projection, asking questions, being clear beforehand of how you can include other people, giving people different roles for things, spreading out that presentation as much as you can to get ownership from the different parts of the world that you might be speaking to. And the other thing I want you to really consider is there are so many tools now where we can be virtual and seen, and sometimes it's awkward to use them. It's only awkward for the first 10 or 20 times. And then it gets really great, and it makes a difference. It really makes a difference. And you will start feeling, if you start to use any of the platforms we can where we can see each other, going back to only voice, you will miss that connection. So be courageous and see if you can up the ante by getting yourself both seen and at least virtually and definitely heard. Anything else you would add there? Thank you for that question. So I'm going to turn it back to Tina so she can close us down because I know we're almost at the bottom of the hour.
Yes. So we have an offer for you if you are interested. Joy did a beautiful job walking you through a lot of those tips. We have a great little job aid, and we know most people don't like paper these days. So here is our offer to you. If you would like us to email you a copy of that, you can go to our website, preleadership.com, and go to the contact page, fill in your info, just put WT2 or job aid in the message, and we will get you that. Or there's a little bowl in the back. You could put your business card in. And we met some people earlier. They were like, I actually think my daughter would benefit from this. So it might be like, you're like, I got this. I know this stuff. But if you think someone else would benefit, again, just let us know. We're happy to pass that along. We know we started a few minutes late, and we want to really honor your time. So our thought is, how about this? Our invitation to you is come up and talk with us. If you have more questions that didn't get answered, we are delighted to be a resource for you. You guys have been so much fun. So this has just been a treat. And we said we would come back if we had time to the thinking in threes. So here is also the offer to you. If you just want to do it on your own, as you're walking out the door with someone, what you could ask them is this: what is it you just heard in this session that was most impactful to you? Hopefully, at least you'll have one answer. And if you actually start by saying, I learned 3 really interesting things, even if initially you could only think of 1 or 2, try it out. What will happen is, I promise you, your brain, by the time you get to the 3rd one, your brain will fill it in for you. And it can be a very empowering and fun technique. So thank you again. It's been a treat being with you. And we look forward to seeing you in the plenary. It's been a fabulous day.